What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel here from the GeekSpeakNation channel, and I'm going to bring you my review of the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman. So, before we begin, I just want you guys to know that this is going to be a spoiler-filled review because we're going to be talking about the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman. So if you haven't seen the movie in general, don't watch this review because I'm going to be talking about the content in this film that is spoiler-related and that was not in the previous incarnation of the film. So, with that warning in mind, here we go. So, to start things off, I'm going to have to say that after viewing this version of the film, I feel sorry for Zack Snyder, the director of the film, because when Batman v Superman came out in the theaters, and it's with the theatrical cut of it, it was met with some mixed to negative reactions and reviews, and it's obvious. And the amount of vitriol that Zack got from everyone who's seen the film is really unfortunate because this director's cut is a much better, a superb improvement, in my opinion, to the theatrical cut of the film. I know that when he originally made this, and this was the intended version he wanted people to see, the studio came around and said, no, we got to cut it down to 2.5 hours because we think that this 2.5 hour version is going to make us more money because we can get more viewings in, and it's going to be more accessible for viewers because viewers honestly don't like to sit in a theater that long most of the time, as you know, statistics have kind of shown depending on the film. But they really missed the mark with not releasing this version of the film. What Zack Snyder was trying to go for after watching this movie, it made me so taken aback. It made me so surprised because he was trying to make such an ambitious and unique superhero film. I think he was trying to do what The Dark Knight Returns did for comic books, but for the superhero genre, and do what Nolan did with The Dark Knight, and try to make a superhero film that was transcendent and talked about topics that were unusual for the characters and the genre, and do something different. And there are a lot of mistakes, and some of the mistakes in this film that were in the theatrical cut are still there, but to me, he did something really special and really amazing with this film and his original intended vision. And I have to say, guys, I really, really like Batman v Superman now based on the director's cut of this film. I have to say that it amazed me what a deep and intricate story he was trying to tell. And like I said before, he's trying to do what Dark Knight Returns did for comics and what Dark Knight did, except do what really hasn't been done before, because even though Nolan made a transcendent superhero genre film, there were no super elements in it. It was very grounded. And he wanted to take and Zack Snyder wants to take a grounded aspect of these heroes, but bring it to a more pantheon level, a more epic, mythological level. And to me, he really succeeds with a few, pitfalls, of course, with certain sequences and certain scenes. But overall, I was really enthralled with the intended vision of this film. So, with that being said, going into what was different between the theatrical cut and the Ultimate Edition, it's actually not much, but it's just enough to where it makes a big difference. And I think the most obvious thing to point out is that the 30 minutes of extra footage isn't really like an entire scene, or in some cases it was, but it was mostly just little bits and pieces of previous scenes that were shaved off in the beginning or in the end, or some lines were changed, or some angles were changed, or some missing pieces of dialogue. But it fleshed out the story so much. And in those little intricate just details that were missing made the movie flow better. And it made us care about the characters more. And it made the moments when there is setup for the Justice League more acceptable and more warranted. And it felt like it was earned when you watch this 3-hour version. And you do feel the 3 hours, by the way. It doesn't feel like a short film. There's a lot going on. It's very packed with a whole bunch of details, and it's a little messy because of that, but that's not really a problem because of Zack Snyder to me. I think any problem with this film has to do with its writing and the choices they made. But going back to the topic of just the things that were different, like I said, it's different scenes that were missing. Specifically, one thing for me, the biggest thing for me was getting to know Clark Kent. That was the most important thing, and that they set up who Clark Kent in this universe was trying to be. He was trying to be a guy who stood up for the right thing, just as he does his persona as Superman, but he was trying his hardest not to pick a fight with Batman. He was trying his hardest not to pick a fight with anyone. He just wanted to keep things quiet and just try to go about it the right way and try to expose things in a journalist's aspect. He really wanted to make a difference from the ground level up. And that's really shown when you have sequences of when he's investigating the murders of guys who were branded with the bat symbol. It's really interesting just how he really gets invested into other people's lives. And after the Senate bombing and trying to help other people out, the character moments like that were really important. And also one pivotal scene for me that was missing is when he's up at night just thinking, and he just calls his mom and he just says, hi. And it's so simple, but Clark is so humanized, and you see him smile actually in this film, and he has dialogue, I know, which is pretty crazy, especially crazy considering that in the theatrical cut, he has 45 lines, I think, throughout the entire film, of a 2.5-hour film, but Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War had 47, and he was like a cameo. So, I don't know, I just had to point that out. That was weird. But in this version, there was just so much to gravitate towards, and there was so much to really, really enjoy with the character of Clark Kent. He is very much fleshed out, and his motivations are clear, that he didn't want to resort to violence when it came to Batman, but he did not approve of his tactics, and he was being manipulated by Lex Luthor the entire time. And that's another thing that's improved in this version of the film, is Lex Luthor's plan. Now, this doesn't change Lex Luthor and Jesse Eisenberg's performance of Alexander Luthor. It doesn't change the performance at all. If you still hate it, you're probably still going to hate it. But the things that this extended version does well is that it spaces him out, first off, throughout the story. It doesn't give you like, it's one scene, then Luthor over and over again. He's very much spaced out in the film. And you get the sense of his overarching plan, and his villainy really comes out. And it's clear from the beginning that he is playing everybody like a fiddle, and he is loving it so much. And you can just see how diabolical he is, and that his motivations come from his relationship with his father. And I think that's more fleshed out as well, and about how his father treated him and how he was a renowned man and how he provided so much for him. But at the same time, in private, to him, he was a monster. And that's where he's obsessed with this idea of, if God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. And if God is all good, he cannot be all powerful. And he's obsessed with this concept of power, which is very, very interesting. And it's much more fleshed out in just a few scenes and just a few extra lines of dialogue. And it's very, very important. And it's a shame that it was a miss in the theatrical cut, because there's so much of his motivations that are there. And the more I was watching the film, the more I really enjoyed Jesse Eisenberg's performance and their portrayal of this Alexander Luthor, of this person who is just obsessed with trying to corrupt things and just tear down the establishment, and just someone so full of hatred and anger and vitriol, and trying to poison everything around him. It's really, really terrifying. And also, his plot is just really well fleshed out, and Lois Lane getting involved and doing the tracing the bullet and things. All of that's fleshed out, and it makes sense, and it builds the tension very well to an amazing crescendo when you get to the point where you realize the bomb inside the chair was laced with lead. That's why Superman couldn't see it, and he thought it was his fault. And there's so many things and all these details that came together when the Senate explosion happened, and it really set things off in a way that didn't happen in the previous cut of the film. When you watch it in this version, it's just so much more heartbreaking, because you see Superman is trying to do the right thing, but the world around him is being distorted by Lex Luthor, and that there are so many people who care and are thankful for Superman, but he is constantly being criticized and hated by a certain group of people, and that really affects him, even when he's trying to do the right thing. And these big incidents are happening that aren't his fault. And it's calling into question his own existence. So his own identity crisis is really much more captivating in this film than it was when you were watching it in the theatrical cut. And this aspect of the film is assisted by Zack Snyder's use of one element from The Dark Knight Returns, where you use television programs as a way to tell the story of what people are thinking, but a distorted, like very specific way, in that anytime someone's watching the television, it's always like, is Batman a menace? Is Superman a menace? Should he really exist? Is he on our side? And when you have all these things going on, it really feeds into the mindset of what Clark is going through, and it really validates the whole entire plan and the whole entire arc that's going on. And moving into the plan and how it affects Batman, it's very interesting as well, because when you watch the theatrical version, it should have been just named Batman Hates Superman, and then Martha gets kidnapped, and then they fight, and then not Justice League, because that's really kind of how it was, and there was no clear line, or there's no clear narrative that showed the connection of why he continued to hate him for 2 years and really wanted to fight him. And you see that the way Lex Luthor's plan was going is that he was feeding into Bruce's hatred, and he was feeding into Bruce's paranoia, and it just works so well in the plot, and it really just brought out what Bruce was going through at the time. And it doesn't validate him killing people, and I understand that they wanted to show that due to the events of what happened, Bruce became more brutal, and that's shown and explained. I don't necessarily approve of it, but it was an interesting concept, and the way they explored it in this cut worked for me much better. So after looking at all those things with Batman, they just fleshed him out more, and I really enjoyed Ben Affleck's portrayal even more, to the point where I think I can finally say he's my definitive Batman. They added what was missing in him in the theatrical cut, which was morality and where he stood. And the whole entire concept is that by the end of this film, he is still able to look past all the hatred and look past all the terrible things that have happened and find a restored faith in humanity and wanting to be a real hero again. And you get that sense of he enjoys being a hero again and really saving people. And the Save Martha sequence in the warehouse, and just the look of happiness that is cut out that Superman's mother gives, that Martha Kent gives when she looks up and sees Batman hovering off. And he's like, Alfred, I don't deserve you, and things like that. And there's just so much great character moments that are just cut out and missing in the film. And I think that it just works for me so well. And I think those are really only the biggest things. Oh, and also the mentioning of Arkham Asylum was really cool, and the fact that Lex Luthor is going there and Batman sending him there. And everything's just handled much better in this film. Everything has time to breathe. Everything is much more well explained. Minus one thing, and that's the dream sequence. I still think that part is the film's biggest pitfall, because it's not used to propel the plot forward. It's just used for setup for Justice League. It doesn't feed into Bruce's paranoia and causes him to get more skeptical about Superman, that it's not like his vision pushed him to do that, and it's not explained that it's a vision. Due to the lack of explanation and the lack of just justification for it being there, minus it being a really awesome sequence, and that tracking shot is extended, which is pretty awesome in my book. But besides that, there was really no purpose for the dream sequence, and there could have been a better way for them to add that setup, or just have the part with the Flash bursting through the TV randomly. Besides that, there's just minor things in the film where you're just like, that's just a writing issue, and like, I don't know if I believe that. How did Superman not continue to investigate Bruce Wayne after the events at the library opening gala, blah, 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 with Lex Luthor? And then there's also, just things with the third act where you're like, why did Lois throw the spear? I don't know. Minor things for me, but overall, there's just certain character things. I wish Superman was a little bit more hopeful, and even though it doesn't really fit in the story they're trying to tell right now, that's what they're trying to build towards, a more hopeful superhero, a more hopeful pantheon for the DC cinematic universe. And yeah, I think this is going to be a great stepping stone using this version of the film moving forward. Besides the writing issues, I think this film has shown me that Zack Snyder has truly grown as a director. I know I give him a lot of flack for being just a visual director, but I think on this film, he really has matured in his storytelling. And it's really shown that even though there was a lot to handle, he was still able to grasp all the concepts that they had come up with and that were written by Chris Terrio and David S. Goyer, and portray them in a coherent fashion, even though some story aspects weren't necessarily coherent or stringed together very well. He still presented it in a very excellent fashion and made a very ambitious, dark, but yet captivating superhero epic. So with that, guys, I think that really sums up all my thoughts on this Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman. So I think I'm ready to give it a score, guys. And I've been deliberating in my mind. I was like, do I really feel it deserves this high of a score? I'm like, I think I do. Guys, I think I'm going to give Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, the Director's Cut, an 8.5 out of 10. So guys, this is a really big step up from the original cut, the theatrical cut of Batman v Superman, which clocked in at me giving it a 7 out of 10, and that was mostly just a throw up of hands where I'm like, well, at least it's Batman v Superman, and some of the good outweighs a lot of the bad and a lot of the awkwardly cut, terrible things that were going on in the theatrical cut, which is garbage. Don't ever watch a theatrical cut ever again, guys. Watch this version of the film. And I know that for some people, this is not going to do anything. Maybe you're like, I liked it a little bit better, or maybe you're just like, I didn't like it. Still hated the movie, still hate it now. It's still mediocre, still crap, whatever. Let me know in the comment sections down below what you think, because I think it's a good discussion to have. I think this film has more meaning based on Zack Snyder's original vision, but let me know what you guys think about it. And also, just, what did you like about this Ultimate Edition? What you didn't like? Were there additions, there we go, in this version of the film that you just felt didn't need to be there, or there's just storylines now that you see overall just didn't need to be there at all? But guys, I loved it. Let me know in the comment sections down below what you think. And also, while you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe to become a part of the Geek Nation. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, we're on our way to 1,000 subscribers. Yeah. Guys, we're at 900 subscribers, over 900. Thank you. It's really wild and it's really crazy, and still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the 1,000th video. But this really means a lot, guys, and it's really awesome to have a community behind me and with the content that we're making. So, yeah, guys, with that, I've been Daniel, and do not forget to get geeky.